So Donald Trump announced that tariffs are indeed coming, and I'm going to be reading an article here and breaking down how these tariffs are going to affect our everyday life. But I got to thinking about how that leading up to the election, we heard so many people talking about eggs. I mean, that was the main talking point was eggs are too expensive. My grocery bill is too high, and we just got to get Trump back in there because prices weren't as high under Trump as they are now under Biden. And we would try to point out things like, hey, a lot of these corporations are trying to rake in profits and take advantage of the pandemic. And nothing we said registered because they just had to have Trump back, because if Trump would come back, he would magically erase all of their problems. And we said, and we tried to warn them. We said, hey, look, this guy wants to be a dictator. He said so. He said he would be a dictator on day one. Oh, well, I don't really care just as long as he does what needs to be done. I mean, we got to bring these grocery bills down, man. Ain't nobody can live. And I'm like, yeah, but he also talked about terminating the Constitution. That doesn't raise a red flag to you? Well, man, I don't care about none of that. I just want my grocery bill to be lower. They always went back to that every single time. And before we read this story, I want to tell a story because I think I think this story I'm about to tell is going to be relived again. Years ago, I overheard a conversation at work. I heard a fellow coworker pull out his phone. He was looking at it and he goes, huh? He said, I'm reading here, and this is during Trump's first term. He goes, I'm reading here that Mexico ain't going to pay for that wall. And the other coworker went, really? And he said, yeah, that's what it says right here. That said Mexico ain't going to do it. And the coworker said, well, I guess if they ain't going to have to do it, we're going to have to help him out, do it for him. I guess we'll have to pay for it. And I guarantee you going forward, that's probably what we're going to see as these prices rise. I don't think you're going to see them say, oh, wait a minute. Eggs used to be cheaper. We got to get rid of Trump. It'll probably just be, well, we're going to have to pay more, man, to help Trump out. I can almost see us heading that way. But I'm going to read you this article here from MidasNews.com because it does a really good job of breaking down how these tariffs are going to affect us. And again, thank y'all so much for your support here on the channel. We've made it past 550,000 subscribers. On the road to 1 million. I sure hope we get there, and I appreciate all of you for your support. So if you haven't already, hit the button, hit the like button, and get in on these crazy conversations if you feel like it. But whenever I say that line, I also want to drive this point home. If you ever need to take a break from this madness and avoid comment sections, do so. Take care of yourself always first. But I think about that sometimes when I say that line in my videos. I'm like, I don't want them to think that that's the only reason we're here. We're here to raise awareness. We're here to talk about the issues at hand. But always take care of yourself and remember that that's what I care about more than anything else. But let's read this article. White House announces tariffs are coming. Tariffs will be imposed on China, Mexico, and Canada. And this was written by Aaron Parnas. And again, shout out to that guy. He does great work. I really enjoy him over on Substack. And I'm over there as well. I've been enjoying writing some pieces there. So if you haven't already, be sure to check that out. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has announced that tariffs will be coming tomorrow for 3 countries, including Mexico, Canada, and China. Mexico and Canada will have 25% tariffs imposed on goods they export, while China will see a 10% tariff imposed on its goods. As a result, costs are going to rise on a number of goods that everyday Americans rely on. While the tariffs will not be official until Donald Trump puts pen to paper, they are coming, and assuming the White House does not issue any exemptions, here are all the goods that will be impacted. Now let's really think about this when we think back on all those arguments we had with people who was worried about their grocery bill. So Canada, dairy. Tariffs on Canada will impact its dairy industry and will affect the prices of items like milk, cheese, and butter in the U.S. Lumber and building materials. Canada is one of the largest suppliers of softwood lumber to the United States, and tariffs on Canada will raise the cost of construction and housing. This means it will cost more to do renovations. Cars and car parts. The U.S. and Canada have extensive trade in automotive goods, and tariffs can impact both vehicles and parts. Energy and gas. Canada provides a large amount of oil and natural gas. Tariffs on energy-related progress could affect gas prices. Fish and seafood. Tariffs could affect imports on fish and seafood products from Canada, which means that you will pay more at the grocery store. So that we've just read now about Canada. And that alone is going to have an impact, okay? That's what people need to understand. That alone by itself, if it was just Canada that Trump was having an argument with and throwing tariffs on, it would still affect dairy, lumber and building materials, car, energies and gas, fish and seafood. So we're not done, though. We got to drop down here to Mexico. So it's going to affect produce. And this is one you really have to stop and think about, because who is picking all of the produce? Who is working in all the produce? And by the way, who's working in all those other things too? The people that we're trying to send home at the moment are the ones doing these jobs. But produce, Mexico is one of the largest exporters of produce to the United States. That means the cost of fruits, vegetables, and other agricultural products to the U.S. specifically. Get ready to pay more for avocados and tomatoes. And I also think about, real quick, I think about where I live, not far from me at all, are tobacco farms. Something very big here in my part of the world. And you cannot find a white kid or a white man anywhere that wants to do that work. It's the immigrants that are doing that work. And when I think about everybody cheering as they get sent home, it's like, okay, who's going to do these jobs? Who's going to pick the fruits? Who's going to pick the vegetables? Because we know that people here is not going to do it, and especially not going to do it for that wage with prices as high as they are. That's what you always hear them say. They'll always say, I used to work at a place, they come in and go, I ain't going to work here for no $14 an hour. I can't live on this. Okay, well, buckle up for the next 4 years. So cars and car parts. Like Canada, Mexico supplies a large amount of vehicles and auto parts to the U.S. Beer and tequila. I know people here in my part of the world loves their share of beer. Mexico imports a lot of beer and tequila. A tariff is akin to a Trump tequila tax. Now, I never was too big on tequila. It never really was my thing, although I do love me some Mexican beer. I can't lie on that one. But I used to play a place years ago where the owner of the bar would buy me a round of tequila if I played Turn the Page by Bob Seger. So anytime I smell or taste tequila, I think of Bob Seger's Turn the Page. But it's also going to affect electronics. Mexico manufactures electronics, including television and other consumer electronics. So there we've done Canada and we've done Mexico, and we're just getting started because we also have China, Trump's favorite word. So in China, it's going to affect electronics. A large number of electronics, including smartphones, laptops, and televisions, will see their prices raised. Furniture. Canada, where the hell did that word come from? China currently, I'm not editing this either. That was pretty funny. Put that on a shirt. China currently exports a significant amount of furniture and furniture parts to the United States. Clothing and textiles, a large portion of the apparel and textile products in the United States are imported from China, and even our kids are going to be affected by that. Even they're not going to be able to have a good time because toys will be affected. Tariffs will lead to a higher prices for toys in America. So, long story short, what's not going to be affected, I think, would have probably been the easier way. I could have just did a video and said, hey, what's not going to be affected, and it would have been a lot shorter of a subject, because everything is going to be affected by this. And everything that MAGA told us they were voting for, they're not going to get. Instead, they're going to get the exact opposite. Now, there's those out there that will say, well, now, Brando, hold on, wait. Just wait and see how this all plays out. What I would argue is, so far, all of the things that Trump is doing that is getting people to flex and getting people excited, when he goes out there and changes the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. What good did that do, and how did that help you with your grocery bill? Talking about buying Greenland, which I never heard him say on the campaign trail myself. I never heard that subject come up. I never heard the whole Canada be the 51st state. But then again, I didn't stand out there for 3 hours in the heat passing out while he said, I don't care about you, I just need your vote. But there were people who did, so maybe they could let me know if that's something they were talking about the entire time. But I never heard those subjects come up. And then he gets in there, and that's the stuff he starts doing. And now he's going out there and saying, we're going to do away with DEI, and we're going to do away with Black History Month, and we're not going to honor any identity, and we're not going to let transgender people in the military or play sports. There's only two genders. And again, how does any of those things affect what I just read to you? How do any of those things, those things do not affect your life at all, but what I just read to you does. And the hardest part about this entire thing to me is I can sit here and I can read all the statistics and all the facts all day long. And I can give them to people. And I can say, this is how this is going to affect you in your day-to-day life. And when I do that, I have a really hard time resonating with people in my part of the world. Meanwhile, Kid Rock, who never walked down a dirt road in his life, never worked anything like the people in my part of the world works, can go out, throw a little temper tantrum, and shoot up some Bud Light, and people in my that will resonate with people where I live more than me saying we're being screwed. And that's one of the most frustrating parts about what I do, is knowing that just anybody can go out there and throw a temper tantrum about something that's never going to affect them, and they will all rah, 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 and get behind that. And meanwhile, they will tell me that, you're just not giving Trump a chance, man. You just always got to blame the orange man. Well, I'm just going to keep a record, and I think everybody should, of where the grocery prices were and where they're headed, and just keep bringing the receipt and showing it to everybody and saying, hey, I thought we were supposed to get a better economy. I don't see how, and I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert, never claimed to be, but I don't see how with these tariffs that you're going to get a good economy out of that. I can't see how it's going to make life any easier for the people in my part of the world, and it's something that everyone should stop and really think about. These culture wars that you all worked up about, they have no effect on your life. That article right there, the things it talks about, does. And people needs to really stop and think about that more often.